Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Data Dialogues where we get to interview the most influential people in the data space and have some fun conversations. Today we are with Sanjeev. Sanjeev is a thought leader in the data and analytics space. He researches and advises changing trends and technologies. He started his data journey at Oracle and has worked at companies like Gartner and Moody's. And worked at companies like Gartner and Moody's Analytics. Sanjeev, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tarush. So happy to join you.
Uh, you are calling in today from San Francisco. How I think the topic kind of on everyone's mind, especially coming out of the sort of Gartner conference this week, is the NVIDIA conference, which is happening right now. Uh, I think it's really interesting because a few years ago, NVIDIA might have been on some people's mind, but definitely
Hmm.
not. It wouldn't have been part of a sort of data and AI sort of conference. So, would love to kind of get your thoughts on sort of these conferences. I know you spent a lot of time at these, and sort of Gartner
Yeah.
was one of your biggest events. So would love to get a little bit of background and
Yeah.
your thoughts on what's happening inside the conference world and some of the big announcements this year.
So a lot of my friends are pinging me saying, "Hey, let's meet up at NVIDIA GTC conference, which is happening, like you said, this week." But it just so turns out that I'm in the other wrong continent right now. I'm in Paris at an event called KubeCon, which is the annual Kubernetes conference. When I signed up for KubeCon, which was many months ago, no one was talking about NVIDIA GTC. Funny thing is that when I was in Gartner almost 5 years ago, NVIDIA would ping us and say, we would like you to come to GTC. No one would go there. I mean, NVIDIA was literally making these GPUs that uh, kids were buying for game to play games in their PCs, and it would accelerate. And all of a sudden, everybody is going to now GTC this week, and then I'm seeing a lot of even data companies are starting to do a lot of announcements. So so NVIDIA owns the AI space, no questions about it. In fact, NVIDIA chips are in such high demand. It is almost impossible for a normal person to even get some of the newer chips. You can get A100s and they're very expensive, but H100s are just being, the more they make, the more they get bought. By the way, I saw Facebook, Meta, is building out a data center with 350,000 NVIDIA GPUs. So a lot of training companies are doing a lot of training on GPUs, and so NVIDIA is doing amazing. From the area that I cover, which is near and dear to my heart, which is more on the data management side, I see there are some announcements that have come out just this week on how do you accelerate your analytics using GPU. So GPU is becoming like an accelerator to doing your analytics faster. So all this time we've been focused on how do you have a better analytical compute engine, how do you store your data in a more normalized or in a fashion that speeds up, like indexing, compression. But now we are also starting to look at performance and improving latency at the hardware level.
Yeah, uh, that makes obviously that is has caught the world by surprise. But if anyone's been living under a rock, like what's happened in the last 18 months with sort of ChatGPT, it should come as no shock at all that AI is
Right.
obviously on its way up, and Meta and all of these companies investing in massive infrastructure.
Yeah.
Um, you recently wrote an article on the decline of the modern data stack and how the data and AI landscape is really changing this and would love we obviously are a company in the data and analytics space, one of the
Yeah.
reasons 5x really exists is the fragmentation of the data space.
Hmm.
Um, so, would love to get, an executive summary really of what are some of your thoughts on, why the, traditional modern data stack is declining and how is AI affecting the space?
Yeah. Modern data stack. Uh, the idea is not. I don't have any objection with the idea. The idea is that as we become more complex, we need to have products that are very specialized in a certain area. The problem that happened was during COVID time, people were busy creating a lot of new technologies inside their organization. All of a sudden, everybody said, "Oh, what? Wait, I've created this stuff. I'm leaving and starting my own company." So I think what I've noticed is that there's a specialization is good, but we have micro specialization now. In each category, we've got literally dozens of products. So if you want to do ETL or ELT, or you want to do data catalog or data such as data preparation, uh, data transformation, reverse ETL, there's just so many products. Businesses don't have that time to look and understand each product and bring it all together. Also, the glue that connects all these products is the metadata, but there are no common metadata standards. So now you got metadata in 10 different products. Even though you have all of this, when you run a dashboard and you have a data quality problem or an anomaly problem, you have no idea what broke, where in this complex supply chain pipeline did a product drop the ball. So now you have to put data observability. Oh, guess what? Data observability also has a dozen vendors. So this is the reason why modern data stack sort of became unwieldy. Gartner introduced this concept of data fabric some years ago, but it hadn't really taken off. And now I see even Microsoft pushed Microsoft Fabric last year because they also have the same problem. You know how many places you can do data transformation now in Microsoft Azure Stack? At least 10 different places, starting from on one hand Power BI. You can go all the way from Power BI. If you start moving, you can do it in Azure Databricks, you can do it in Spark, you can do it in Azure Data Factory, you can do it in SQL Server, and a bunch of other places where you can do this. So that's
All the way from
crazy.
ingestion all the way to your BI, every layer
Yeah,
now supports transformation. So,
correct.
exactly.
So Fabric sort of abstracts all that complexity and stitching of these different components into a more unified environment.
Are you bullish on Fabric in the long term?
I wouldn't say so. I think we it's a pendulum that constantly shifts between centralized, decentralized, and Fabric is having its time in the space right now. Uh, I don't. So, so Tarush, the way I look at this is I work with a lot of data fabric companies. In fact, I helped launch a website only last week. It's called datafabric.com, in which I mentioned a few different products. And without taking your permission, I even mentioned 5x in it. So, although I know you're not in this space, exactly. But here's the reason I mention it is not for the simple reason that although I believe I've written about this, when a vendor comes to me and says yes, I want to go and sell data fabric, my answer is no, don't sell data fabric. Don't sell data mesh. Don't sell anything. You only one thing to sell, which is what is the problem that you're trying to solve and how efficiently can you solve that problem. Businesses don't give a damn whether you call it a data fabric or not. So that's
Yeah.
why when you ask me, am I bullish about it? I don't see. We keep defining terms like modern data stack. What does that mean? Big data, no SQL, the data mesh. So if you define a term, although I understand the need for a category, but the problem is you spend all your time trying to define what is a data fabric, and then the next question comes, well, how is it different than data mesh? Then you go to another tangent when you should really be asking the client, what is your problem? How can I speed up the time to value from your data and reduce your total cost of ownership and complexity in delivering that?
Um, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like ultimately, one of the reasons I think the modern data stack, and I love your definition of it. I think one of the reasons it became unsustainable and has now failed is that when you have 10 different vendors all trying to extract maximum money out of you,
Hmm.
and even if
Yep.
you play nice with the layers up and down, it just becomes very difficult. Like, the analogy 5x always uses is, if you walked into a Honda and instead of selling you a Honda Civic, if they sold you an engine and you had to build your own car, we would just see much fewer cars in the street because building and operating and maintaining a car goes away from the driving experience. And in the same way, going and managing individual components goes and takes away, what we all are here to do, which is add business ROI.
Yeah.
So I fully, resonate with what you're saying around, the naming and like the categories and being bullish on one
Yeah.
piece is not it. It doesn't matter how powerful the engine is. And if you don't have the rest of the chassis and all the
Yeah.
other pieces, it's not going to make any difference.
So
Um,
one last point I want to make on this, which I just want to have it for the record. In December, I uh, I wrote with another guy this 2024 trends for data and AI, in which I said modern data stack is declining. In January, the flag bearer of modern data stack, if you may, DBT Labs CEO Tristan Handy, in his blog, he wrote that in spite of some thoughtful blogs, modern data stack is not going anywhere. It is here to stay, and it's
it's just
so
not fun.
important.
Yeah.
In February, he wrote, "Modern data stack is dead," and then Joe Rice, Ben Stancil, all these influencers, they all jumped on the bandwagon and they said, "Yeah, modern data stack is dead." Well, we called it out in December, so
Yeah. I read those articles and I've spoken
yeah,
with a bunch of those folks. So, uh, yeah, I think the terminology for sure, uh, again, I agree with you a lot. Like the terminology is sort of irrelevant, but I think
yeah.
where the way I look at it is we're entering consolidation, not just
Mhm.
from the fact that like we just have too many car parts, but also from a costing perspective, also from a customer experience perspective. Like, and I feel bad for you know the way I've seen it is we've had like data teams, which data's been adopted by your technology first companies, right? Like companies that can afford to go build data teams and go do it. But I think we're
Correct.
far away from mass market adoption. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is, a 10-person restaurant chain or, a company out in the Midwest, in a more sort of traditional sort of business line mass market, we still see not a whole lot of like penetration by data companies, and a big reason for that is we've made it so complicated that it's almost
Yeah.
impossible for someone who doesn't have Silicon Valley in New York or like millions of dollars of like R&D budget to actually go get value from it. Um, so I see how the world is shifting. Now the question I kind of have for you is you know until very recently, some of the way the world was shifting would have
Mm.
started becoming consolidation, right? Like, do we need like 18 different layers, or
No.
are 15 of them actually just sort of features, and you have like warehouse, you have BI, you have ingestion. These are few core categories. How is AI really, you know, how is AI really changing what is our definition of these categories, and how is AI going to make it easier for businesses to go get value from data?
So first of all, without getting into oversimplification or buying into this magic called Gen AI, one thing that is forgiven is that Gen AI, especially more than AI, because AI has been around for a long time and we've used AI a lot for automating stuff, like figuring out what's the best configuration to run, let's say, Snowflake, you know,
Yeah.
and helping do workload optimization, discovery of and classification of data, curation.
Yeah.
So we've been using AI,
Pricing, supply chain,
price,
inventory,
yes,
all
pricing
of like the
optimization.
AI models.
Correct. We've been using machine learning models for that. Generative AI is new, relatively speaking, just a few years old. What generative AI does is it has this ability to understand natural language, which means that now I can ask a question to my data directly. And I think Chat GPT, especially, truly democratized AI. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Will it get there? 100% it'll get there. You know, and maybe 100% it get there to where it needs to be. And somebody had posted a statement I made at Gartner DNS Summit in my presentation. AI is not SQL. The definition of accuracy is not the same. A SQL is deterministic. If I write a SQL statement any number of times, or you write a different SQL statement on the same data, but different syntax, we'll get the same result every single time if the data has not changed. But I ask a question and you ask the same question, we'll get different responses from Gen AI because it's based on probability. It may understand the context and it may say, oh, you guys live in different parts of the world, so I think you're asking two different about two different topics, but the semantics are the same. So so we will never. So they're not comparable. But the beauty is that I can combine the two. So, for example, I can say, give me for my salespeople, tell me what should be the next best action for customers that have the highest propensity to churn. Now, to find out which customers have the highest propensity to churn, I will use traditional SQL or machine learning and I look at my structured data. But to create the next best action, which is a set of best practices or text, I will use GenAI. So I think this is a very powerful combination that has never existed. I have spent almost all my career, which spans decades now, on structured data because there was no easy way of handling unstructured data. But now we can, using Gen AI, we can extract entities, we can recognize them, we can label them accurately or semi accurately, but with some RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback, we can make that process very accurate. So now unstructured data is also a new domain that's opened up, and I think it's going to benefit customers a lot.
Do you think that ChatGPT is going to, is that the sort of model layer, or is that the sort of technology which is going to be, which is going to bridge that? Or, you know, do
No.
you think that, very fundamentally, ChatGPT is this black box, right? Which I know they keep saying that there's a version which can go run on your infrastructure, but kind of, very different from how Databricks or Snowflake are looking at it
Yeah.
right now, which is go train it
Yeah.
on your own data set, and we'll give you the tools for model training
Right.
and sort of last mile deployment. So how do kind of
Yep.
you see, like, we understand that AI is it, right? In terms of it's gonna
Yeah.
make the um, actual machine reinforced, decision making.
Mhm.
With things like conversational BI is probably one of the most exciting things, being able to speak to your data instead of building
Yeah.
dashboards. But what I would love to kind of understand from you is what is going to be, are we? Is it going to be open AI, or is it going to be trained on your data set or a combination? How do you sort of look at, who's going to win? Or is it just going to be NVIDIA because no matter which one it is, it's all running on NVIDIA
NVIDIA
chips?
will win in the end. The house always wins.
Yeah.
Everybody needs NVIDIA chips.
Yeah.
But by the way, it's not just NVIDIA. I have to
Yeah.
say that we should be open because Intel and AMD are also introducing chips. IBM actually is, I think, the hidden secret here. They have a two nanometer chip as well. AWS has Trainium and Inferentia. Google Cloud has TPUs. So NVIDIA is not the only game in town. Plus the new one, there's one called Grok, Grouq, as opposed to the one ending in K, which is Elon Musk's Twitter X something. So there are many chips, but you always need hardware, so they are going to win, irrespective of whether others win or not. But there are a lot of market dynamics on top that are very important. For example, I don't think ChatGPT is the right answer because it depends on your use case. If your use case is to bring Gen AI for customer service, customer support, then maybe ChatGPT is a good choice. And in fact, it is one of the most successful use cases today. But if I'm in pharma and I want to say, I want to use Gen AI to scan my unstructured data, my history, and help me improve the time it takes to approve a drug from FDA, or how can I find a cure for a new disease? How can I accelerate drug development? Then that's not a chat GPT use case at all. But irrespective of whether it's a customer support or it is something that profound as the pharma use case, the fact remains that we need an ability to personalize AI. By personalizing AI, there are three ways you can do it. You can train your data, you can train your own model, but that's very difficult to do. We are not there. Or you can fine tune, or you can do something called retrieval augmented generation. A combination of fine tuning and RAG are the most common ways to bring your own data and superimpose it on top of maybe an open source model like Llama 2 or Llama 3 or Mistral or some other open source model. I hope that
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And um, going kind of one level deeper inside, the application of AI, we
Mm.
spoke about AI
Yeah.
apps. We spoke about, we've been using those for a long time. We spoke about
Mhm.
Gen AI now,
Mhm.
which is, allows us, on sort of many different areas, creative from like writing code, to, sort of obviously,
Yeah.
very much inside the sort of content creation and
Yeah.
customer success and all of these different areas. When you think about its application inside data, again, few different ways people have started looking about it. Obviously,
Mhm.
when OpenAI came out, the first thing every data company did is build, I think, one of the most, build a text to SQL parser, which has been kind of version one of this. And, we're talking about conversational BI.
Mhm.
What have you heard are some of the coolest applications of
Hmm.
Gen AI in your traditional data and analytics world?
So you're reading my mind. Or maybe a lot of what I'm saying is coming from my trends document. Since you asked about the AI applications, there are two things I want to mention here. One is at the application layer, and second is at the architecture layer. So let me just cover the architecture piece really quick. On the architecture side, I propose an idea. By the way, my co-author is a guy called Rajesh Parekh. He's the huge brains behind everything AI. So we both wrote this article together. We came up with this concept of something called intelligent data platform. So it's a data platform, but it's intelligent in the sense that we're bringing AI on top of existing data stack. So we're not creating two different stacks. So architecturally, what we are saying is that we're bringing structured unstructured data into one place. We are maybe abstracting it using an open table format like Apache Iceberg or Delta or Hoodie or something like that. And we have a metadata layer, so we know what's going on. But then on top is where the compute layer is. So we separated compute and store. That compute layer is where analytical engines are. So that analytical engine could be SQL for one, could be like DuckDB, or it could be Python, Pandas, Spark, Ray, uh, uh, Starburst, Dremio, Trino, Presto, Startree, Druid. So basically, we've disaggregated the storage and the compute or the analytical engine. But architecturally, what I'm saying is that LLMs now fall in that compute layer. So because I might be asking a question using natural language, so then that will go to a foundation model, and that foundation model will then generate the answer. So the point is that we are bringing all the AI stuff along with the data as an expansion of the stack, not as a separate stack. So what sits above that? So above that, we've got BI reports, dashboards. We've got data products. But now on the application side, we are also looking at AI agents. These AI agents could be autonomous pieces of code specialized to do a certain job. For example, if I call customer support, then an agent may take my request and go do search for the question I've asked and give me a response. Or a different agent may go open a Jira ticket or a Remedy help desk ticket. Another agent may go and maybe provision some resources for me. So these agents are like microservices of the AI space, and and that's where I see the next generation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I forgot which company, but someone just launched that very similar concept of having agents, which
Yeah.
you can train. Uh, Very very interesting. Um, I I know we're sort of running out of time. I wanted to, we'll have a link to your article. You sort of recently wrote an article on the MDS trends, and what you were just talking about, your approach of
Mhm.
AI apps, and what's happening inside Gen AI. You've also written a book which is sort of Trusted AI 101 tips for getting your
Yeah.
data AI ready. Um, Obviously you're spending a lot of your time in this space. I wanted to ask you really a slightly different type of question, like kind of moving away from where the industry is going and what do you really do as a practitioner, to zooming into businesses today, right? Like today, if you are, I kind of want to take your view on two, three different areas, right?
Mm.
One of them is if you're a business, getting started, you're going through growth, you've found product, you're basically at the beginning of like product market fit, you're starting to think about, data infrastructure. So from that lens, that's the first thing. Sort of lens number two on the extreme side,
Yeah.
on an enterprise company, going through a digital transformation project, and then in a third lens, an established business, but again, not a technology first or a sort of technology native business looking to, you have the scale, you have the size, but you might be um, an enterprise business sitting out of India. So wearing three different hats for three different businesses, really, what would be your sort of strategy for not getting left behind in the data and AI world, and obviously to go focus on like ROI, which is really the name of the game.
Yeah, the question you ask is super pertinent. Why I like this question a lot is because we have we're going down a dangerous path. Sometimes our expectations are overinflated from what AI can do for us. The second thing is that we are doing a lot of use cases where the ROI is not that great. You know, for example, I can point my foundation model and I can say, go read all my manuals and create me a frequently asked questions. So now I have abridged, I summarized. This is a great use case for Gen AI. It's really good at it, you know. But so what? What significant value am I going to get competitive advantage of from creating a frequently asked questions? I don't think so. But the pharma example I gave, financial services, what they're trying to do, trying to create new markets or reduce your operational overhead costs. I think those are where we need to head. So to answer your questions, I think it's really important to always start with business first. Become really good at the domain you are in. So whatever it may be, maybe a supply chain, and you want to use Gen AI to help with just-in-time delivery of supplies based on some trends or past history that you can now glean from your contracts and shipping documents and stuff like that. So AI, you can feed it a ton of information that humanly is impossible, but you need to find that right use case, and that has been a stumbling block right now. We are still in the experimentation stage, so we thought by now we would be happily putting these AI applications in production. Remember, McKinsey said last year that we expect $6 trillion of revenue every single year from because of AI, Gen AI, but we're not there yet. We're starting to see it in some areas like customer service, but more or less picking that right use case that will generate significant value is very important. And hopefully we'll get there soon.
Amazing. Uh, Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for being on this show. One kind of last question I ask all of our guests is there any particular company in the data and AI space which you're most excited about right now?
Okay, great
Apart
question. As an independent, impartial analyst trained by Gartner, which is sworn to being subjective because they do all the magic quadrants, you just cannot pick a favorite.
Sure.
Same
Uh,
same applies to me. So
how about five companies which you're excited about across multiple sort of different
yeah.
quadrants?
Okay, so I think the most exciting ones. So I'm not talking about NVIDIA, the chip. I don't really spend a lot of time there in the data and analytics. The three hyperscalers, Snowflake and Databricks, MongoDB. These I think are the top that come to my mind. But see, just by naming this, I work with all the other companies that are in the same space as MongoDB. So now they would be like, wait, that's be so that's why I want to be careful. I let me answer it by saying one thing. AI is new, and see, I didn't want to give you a wishy-washy answer and once again sort of like not answer your question. So let me just say this: because AI is maturing, not a single company today has a leadership or a hold on AI. Unlike Nvidia in the on the chips, so every company uh, can do it. If you look at Microsoft, which was a company that nobody wanted to talk about, it was legacy, its heydays were gone. If they can turn around and become the sexiest company that OpenAI people want to join, if they were not in OpenAI. Now that didn't happen, but they were willing to join Microsoft. I'm using Microsoft as an example to say that Teradata, Cloudera, all these companies that have been around for a long time and were leaders in their space at one point in time has the same opportunity to come back. IBM,
Yeah.
it's been done before.
Uh, Thank you so much, Sanjeev, for your wisdom.
My
Looking
pleasure.
forward to having longer conversations. Thank you for being on the show and adding a ton of value to our listeners.
My pleasure. Thank you. Nice being on your show. See you.